At the far edge of mapped human space, beyond the busy trade routes and crowded colonies, there was a listening station called Outpost Kappa 17. Most people on Earth had never heard of it. That was the point. The station floated in orbit around a pale, frozen world that never saw sunlight directly. Its surface was locked beneath endless storms of ice and dust, a planet too hostile for life, too quiet for interest, too far away to matter. And that was exactly why humans built something there. Silence. Kappa 17 was designed to listen. Not to people. Not to ships. To space itself. The station housed 198 personnel. Scientists, engineers, signal analysts, and a small security team that rarely had anything to do. No families. No tourists. No visitors. Just work. Every day followed the same pattern. The lights brightened at 0600 station time. The corridors slowly filled with movement. Soft footsteps. Quiet voices. The hum of machines. In the central observation deck, long rows of screens displayed nothing but static and distant stars. Endless data streams flowed across them. Radiation levels, gravitational fluctuations, background signals from deep space. Most of it meant nothing. Most of it was routine. Dr. Elias Varn spent his mornings the same way he had for the last 3 years, sitting in front of a curved console, scanning through signal logs that never changed. No anomalies. No unknown transmissions. No surprises. He sipped his coffee, already cold, and scrolled through another hour of silence. Across the room, Technician Lyrason leaned back in her chair, staring at a monitor filled with empty wave patterns. Anything, she asked, not really expecting an answer. Elias didn't look up. Nothing, he said. She nodded. Of course. Nothing was normal. Everything about Kappa 17 was built around nothing happening. The engineers checked systems that never failed. The scientists studied signals that never changed. The security team ran drills for threats that never came. Meals were identical. Days blurred together. Weeks passed without a single event worth reporting. Predictable. Quiet. Too quiet. Some of the crew joked about it. Some of them hated it. Some of them stopped noticing it altogether. Because after enough time, silence stops feeling strange. It starts to feel permanent. Outside the station, the stars stretched endlessly in every direction. Cold. Distant. Unmoving. No ships passed through this region. No signals crossed this far. No one was watching. Or at least, that's what everyone believed. Elias leaned back slightly, stretching his shoulders. Another shift nearly complete. Another day without change. He reached forward to close the current scan log. Routine complete. Nothing detected. Just like yesterday. Just like the day before that. Just like every day since Kappa 17 had been activated. The system was quiet. The station was quiet. Space itself was quiet. And for a long time, it had always been that way. The sound was so soft that Elias almost missed it. A single tone. Out of place. He frowned slightly but didn't look up right away. The station made small noises all the time. System checks, background processes, harmless alerts that meant nothing. Kappa 17 was full of harmless things. The tone came again. This time, Elias paused. His fingers hovered over the console. That wasn't a system check. He turned his head slowly toward the auxiliary sensor panel on the far side of his station. A small amber light blinked once, then stopped. Silence returned. Lyra glanced over. You hear that? Elias nodded, still watching the panel. Probably a calibration glitch, he said. It sounded reasonable. It always was. He tapped a few commands into his console, pulling up the sensor log. The screen filled with familiar data streams, clean, steady, unchanged. No spikes. No anomalies. No alerts. Nothing. He exhaled quietly. Yeah. Just noise. Lyra shrugged and leaned back again. Told you. This place would break before anything interesting happened. Elias almost smiled. Almost. He closed the log and reached for his coffee again. Before his hand touched the cup, the tone returned. Longer this time. Sharper. Both of them froze. The amber light blinked again. Twice. Then it stayed on. Elias sat up straight. That's not a glitch. Lyra was already moving, her chair sliding forward as she pulled the sensor feed onto the main display. Running active scan, she said quickly. The system responded instantly. Lines of data began to scroll faster now. Not the slow, steady crawl they were used to, but something slightly irregular. Elias leaned closer. Zoomed the outer range. Lyra adjusted the parameters. The display shifted, focusing deeper into the edge of the station's detection field. At first, there was nothing. Just empty space. Static. Silence. A single flicker. So small it could have been ignored. A tiny distortion in the data stream. Lyra tilted her head. You see that? Elias nodded slowly. Probably interference, he said. But his voice was quieter now. Less certain. She enhanced the signal. The flicker stabilized into a faint dot on the edge of the screen. Barely visible. Barely there. Lyra zoomed in further. The system hesitated for a fraction of a second, then locked onto it. A single object. Drifting. Far beyond standard traffic lanes. Elias leaned back slightly, tension easing from his shoulders. A rock, he said. Just an asteroid. Lyra nodded. Yeah. Has to be. It made sense. Out here, small debris wasn't unusual. Rare. But not impossible. Elias relaxed again, reaching for his coffee. Log it and move on, he said. Routine. Everything was still routine. The station returned to its quiet rhythm. The hum of machines. The steady glow of screens. The endless silence of space. On the display, the small dot remained at the edge of detection. Unmoving. Unimportant. Harmless. For a few seconds, nothing changed. Then the system beeped again. Elias didn't touch his coffee this time. Slowly, he turned back toward the screen. Another dot appeared. Right next to the first one. Elias didn't speak. He just stared at the screen. Two dots. Side by side. Perfectly aligned. Lyra leaned forward slowly. That's not normal. No, Elias said quietly. It's not. He tapped the console, running a quick trajectory analysis. The system processed the data in silence. Then it returned a result. Stable formation. Elias felt something tighten in his chest. Zoom out, he said. Lyra adjusted the view. The screen pulled back, and a third dot appeared. Then a fourth. Then 5. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. Elias. I see it. The sensor began to update faster now. Dots flickered into existence one after another. 6, 9, 12. Elias's fingers moved across the console, pulling in deeper scans, widening the detection range. Enhanced signal. Full spectrum. Already on it. The system struggled for a moment, then sharpened. The dots became clearer. Not drifting. Not random. They were moving. Together. In perfect formation. Elias's stomach turned. Those aren't rocks. Lyra shook her head slowly. No. The count kept rising. 15. 20. 30. Each new contact appeared at precise intervals, locking into position like pieces of a machine assembling itself in real time. No collisions. No deviation. No hesitation. Just order. Cold, perfect order. Elias opened the velocity readout. His breath caught. They're fast. How fast? He didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned the numbers again, as if hoping they would change. They didn't. Too fast. Lyra looked at him. That's not an answer. Elias swallowed. Faster than anything in our registry. Silence filled the room. The dots continued to multiply. 50. 70. 100. The display was no longer mostly empty. It was filling. Elias activated the long-range scanner. The system lagged under the load, struggling to process the sudden influx of data. Come on. The image flickered, then stabilized. What they saw made both of them freeze. The dots weren't just increasing. They were organizing. Layered formations. Multiple vectors. Approach patterns converging toward a single point. Toward them. Lyra's voice was barely audible. That's not debris. No. That's not traffic. No. Her eyes stayed locked on the screen. Then what is it? Elias didn't respond right away. Because he already knew. He just didn't want to say it. The numbers surged again. 150. 200. 300. The system emitted a sharp warning tone. For the first time since Kappa 17 was built, the station flagged a mass contact event. Red indicators began to blink across the console. Elias stood up slowly. His chair rolled backward behind him. Run identification protocols, he said. Lyra's hands moved fast across her controls. Scanning, no matches, no transponders, no registry hits. Her voice tightened. I'm getting nothing. Elias stepped closer to the main display. Hundreds of objects now filled the outer sensor range. Moving as one. Silent. Precise. Intentional. The realization hit all at once. Not random. Not natural. Not human. Elias spoke quietly. One word. Ships. The room felt colder. Lyra stared at the screen. That's a fleet. Elias shook his head slowly. No. The system updated again. The number climbed past 500. Then it kept going. That's not a fleet. More dots appeared beyond the edge of the scan, pushing inward. Endless. Expanding. Unstoppable. Elias whispered, almost to himself, that's an invasion. The room didn't move. No one spoke. Hundreds of dots filled the screen, slowly advancing, perfectly aligned, perfectly silent. Then the alarm changed. A low, steady tone replaced the sharp warnings. Incoming range threshold. They were getting closer. Lyra swallowed. We need to report this. Elias nodded. Already sending it. His fingers moved quickly across the console, opening a priority channel to command. Outpost Kappa 17 to Central Command, he said, forcing his voice steady. We have multiple unidentified contacts entering sensor range. No transponders. No registry match. Movement is coordinated. He hesitated for a fraction of a second. Then finished. Requesting immediate analysis and instructions. The message transmitted into the dark. Silence followed. No reply. Lyra leaned closer to the screen. They're still accelerating. Elias switched to active communication protocols. Try standard greeting, he said. Lyra blinked. You think they'll respond? We don't know what they are, Elias replied. So we act like they might. It was procedure. It was always procedure. Lyra opened a broad-spectrum transmission channel. Every known communication frequency. Every standard first contact format. Her hand hovered over the control. Then she pressed it. This is Human Outpost Kappa 17, she said clearly. You are approaching controlled space. Please identify yourselves. The signal spread outward, carried across the void. The room waited. Seconds passed. Nothing. No change in formation. No slowdown. No response. Elias exhaled slowly. Send it again. Lyra repeated the message. This time, the reply came instantly. Not audio. Not visual. Just text. It appeared directly on every screen in the room. Perfectly translated. No delay. No distortion. No error. Lyra leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. They understood us. Elias didn't respond. He was reading the message. Over and over again. Trying to process it. It didn't change. It didn't need to. The words were simple. Cold. Absolute. Surrender your station. This system now belongs to us. No greeting. No negotiation. No explanation. Just a statement. A claim. Lyra shook her head slowly. That has to be a mistake. Elias didn't think so. He opened the channel again. This is a civilian listening station, he said firmly. We are not a military installation. We request peaceful contact and... The transmission cut off. Not interrupted. Overwritten. The same message appeared again. Unchanged. Surrender your station. This system now belongs to us. The fleet shifted. Subtle, but unmistakable. Formations tightened. Vectors aligned. Power readings spiked across the sensor display. Lyra's voice trembled. Elias! I see it. Her hands hovered above the console. Those energy levels, that's not communication. No. The truth settled into the room like ice. Elias stared at the advancing formation. They're not here to talk. The system emitted a new warning. Weapon signatures detected. Across the entire fleet. Charging. Lyra whispered, "What do we do?" Elias didn't answer immediately, because for the first time since the station was built, there was no procedure for this. The screen filled with light. And then, the fleet fired. The first strike hit before anyone could react. A blinding flash tore across the screen. Then the station shook. The floor jolted beneath Elias's feet. Consoles rattled. Lights flickered violently as a deep metallic groan echoed through the structure. For a split second, no one understood what had happened. Then the alarm screamed. Not one. All of them. Red lights flooded the room. Impact confirmed. Lyra shouted, gripping the edge of her console. Section D, external sensor array is gone. Elias stared at the damage readout. Gone. Not damaged. Not offline. Erased. The entire outer sensor platform had been vaporized in a single shot. Shields, he snapped. Lyra's hands flew across the controls. Minimal, barely holding. That wasn't a warning shot. It wasn't. The second strike came immediately. No pause. No hesitation. A direct hit slammed into the station's outer ring. The impact was louder this time. Stronger. The entire structure shuddered as if something massive had grabbed it and twisted. The lights died. Darkness swallowed the room. Then emergency lighting kicked in, dim, red, unstable. Sparks burst from a nearby console. Someone screamed. Elias grabbed the edge of his station to stay upright. Report. Structural damage across multiple sectors. Lyra shouted. Hull integrity dropping, 72% and falling. Another alarm cut through the noise. Atmospheric breach detected. Elias's chest tightened. Where? Civilian sector, Lyra said, her voice shaking now. Living quarters, multiple decompressions. A third strike hit. Closer. Much closer. The impact didn't just shake the station. It cracked it. A deep, echoing fracture sound ripped through the structure as something gave way somewhere far below them. The deck tilted slightly. Gravity flickered. For half a second, Elias felt weightless. Then it snapped back. He staggered forward. No. On the main screen, the damage visualization lit up like a spreading wound. Sections turning red. Then black. Then disappearing entirely. People were still in those sections. Elias forced himself to focus. Send distress signal. Now. Lyra didn't hesitate. She slammed her hand onto the emergency transmitter. Broadcasting on all frequencies, she shouted. Priority 1 distress. Colony under attack. Unknown hostile fleet. Request immediate assistance. The signal launched into space. A small pulse. Desperate. Elias watched it go. Then the fourth strike came. This one didn't hit equipment. It hit people. The civilian dome. The largest section of the station. The place where most of the crew lived. For a fraction of a second, the external cameras caught it. A flash of light. Then the dome shattered. Glass, metal. All gone in an instant. Thousands of fragments exploded outward into space. The oxygen warning screamed. Mass casualties. Lyra cried. We've lost entire decks. Her voice broke. Elias couldn't look at the screen anymore. He didn't need to. He knew what it showed. The fleet outside didn't slow down. Didn't hesitate. Didn't communicate. They just kept firing. Precise. Controlled. Systematic. Like they were dismantling something piece by piece. The fifth strike hit the defense grid. Whatever shielding remained flickered once. Then vanished. Completely. Kappa 17 was now exposed. Helpless. Naked. The alarms blended into one continuous scream. Crew members ran through the corridors outside. Shouts echoed. Orders overlapped. Fear spread faster than the damage itself. Elias stood frozen for a moment, then forced himself to move. "Evacuation protocols," he shouted. "Seal all remaining sections. Reroute power to life support, whatever's left of it." Lyra's hands shook as she worked. "There aren't enough escape pods." Elias didn't respond, because they both already knew that. There was nowhere to go. No reinforcements. No defense. No time. Outside, the fleet surrounded the station completely now. Hundreds of ships. Watching. Waiting. The firing stopped. Suddenly, silence fell. Heavy. Unnatural. Elias slowly looked up at the screen. Why did they stop? As if answering him, a new message appeared. Unchanged. Surrender immediately. Resistance will result in total destruction. Lyra stared at it, her face pale. They call this mercy? Elias didn't answer. He just looked at what remained of the station. Burning. Breaking. Dying. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "They think it's over." Outside, the fleet drifted silently. Waiting. Confident. Certain. They believed the battle was already won. They believed no one was coming. They believed humanity was weak. They believed wrong. No one moved for a few seconds. The alarms were still screaming. The lights were still flickering. But inside the control room, everything felt still, like the moment after something breaks. Lyra stared at the damaged screen, her hands frozen above the console. Sections of Kappa 17 were gone. Not offline. Gone. Entire decks had vanished from the station layout. Life signs flickered across the display, then disappeared one by one. Elias forced himself to breathe. "Status," he said quietly. Lyra swallowed. "Hull integrity at 41%, dropping. Life support failing in 3 major sectors. Power grid unstable." She hesitated, then added, "Casualties are high." Elias closed his eyes for a brief moment. Just one. Then he opened them again. Focused. Controlled. "Contain what we can," he said. "Seal off decompressed sections. Redirect oxygen to survivors." Lyra nodded, even though they both knew. There wouldn't be enough. There was never enough. Outside, the fleet remained motionless. Watching. Waiting. Like predators that had already decided the outcome. The silence between attacks felt worse than the strikes themselves. Elias looked at the long-range communication panel. The main array had been destroyed in the first hit. Only the emergency transmitter remained. Limited. Barely functional. "Did the distress signal go through?" he asked. Lyra didn't answer right away. She checked the system again. Ran the transmission log. Then shook her head slowly. "I don't know." Elias stared at her. "What do you mean you don't know?" "It transmitted," she said. "But the signal strength was low. There's interference from the damage. It might not have cleared the system." Might not. Elias looked back at the stars beyond the broken station. Earth was far. Too far. "Distance?" he asked quietly. Lyra didn't need to check. 39 light years. Elias nodded once. Help would take decades at normal speeds. Even at emergency response velocity. It would take weeks. They didn't have weeks. They didn't have days. They didn't even have hours. Kappa 17 had minutes. Maybe less. A distant explosion echoed through the station. Another section collapsing. Another part of their home disappearing. Lyra's voice dropped to a whisper. "There are still people out there." Elias didn't answer. Because he didn't know what to say. Because there was nothing to say. The truth was simple. Too simple. They were alone. No backup. No defense. No escape. The fleet had already proven that. It could destroy them whenever it wanted. It just hadn't finished yet. Elias looked at the message still glowing on the screen. "Surrender immediately." His jaw tightened. "They don't want surrender," he said quietly. Lyra looked at him. "Then why stop firing?" Elias stared at the fleet. Cold. Silent. Perfectly still. "They want us to know we've lost." The words settled heavily in the room. Lyra turned back to her console, her hands trembling again. "What do we do now?" Elias didn't respond immediately. He looked around the control room. At the damaged consoles. At the flickering lights. At the empty seats where people had been just minutes ago. Then he looked back at the stars. Endless. Unmoving. And for the first time, they didn't feel quiet anymore. They felt distant. Unreachable. Elias spoke softly. We hold. Lyra blinked. Hold? For what? He didn't look at her. He kept his eyes on the stars. For anything. The station trembled again. Weaker this time. Like something slowly giving up. Outside, the fleet continued to wait. Patient. Certain. They believed no one had heard the signal. They believed no one was coming. And here, inside a dying station, it almost felt like they were right. Deep inside the failing systems of Kappa 17, something was still moving. Not people. Not machines. A signal. The emergency transmission had not stopped. It couldn't. The system was designed that way. Even with damaged relays, even with broken arrays, even with power failing across the station, it kept trying. Again. And again. And again. Each burst weaker than the last. Each transmission more fragmented. Inside the control room, Lyra stared at the signal log. It's still broadcasting, she said quietly. Elias turned slightly. How strong? She shook her head. Barely there. On the display, the outgoing message flickered in broken segments. Words cutting in and out. Incomplete. Distorted. Unknown vessels, multiple contacts, weapons, under attack. Static swallowed the rest. The system struggled, rebuilt what it could, and sent it again. A whisper into the dark. Elias walked closer, watching the fragments repeat. Can we boost it? Lyra tried. Rerouting power. Bypassing damaged relays. For a moment, the signal strength rose. Then dropped again. Not enough, she said. Elias nodded slowly. It would have to be enough. Because there was nothing else left. Another tremor passed through the station. Weaker. Slower. Like something running out of time. Outside, the fleet still waited. Silent. Unmoving. Confident. They had already decided the ending. They just hadn't seen it yet. Elias looked at the stars again. Somewhere out there. The signal was traveling. Broken. Incomplete. Almost lost. But still moving. Light years of empty space stretched ahead of it. Cold systems. Dead planets. Endless darkness. No guarantee. No confirmation. No answer. Just distance. Lyra spoke softly. Do you think anyone will hear it? Elias didn't respond right away. He kept his eyes on the stars. On the emptiness. On the silence. Then he answered. I don't know. The signal continued its journey. Leaving the dying station behind. Carrying what little remained. Coordinates. Fragments. A warning. A final message. And as Kappa 17 slowly fell apart behind it, that small, broken transmission moved forward. Alone. Unseen. Unanswered. For now. 39 light-years away. Earth did not hear the signal. Not at first. The transmission was too weak. Too broken. Too small to stand out against the constant noise of space. Thousands of signals pass through human networks every second. Cargo routes, satellite relays, mining operations, civilian traffic. Routine. Predictable. The system filtered most of them automatically. Only anomalies were flagged. Only emergencies were prioritized. And this signal, barely qualified as either. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, far below mountains and cities, there was a facility that officially did not exist. No maps marked its location. No public records mentioned its purpose. No one outside a very small circle even knew it was there. Inside, it never slept. Rows of massive screens covered the walls. Data flowed constantly across them. Streams of numbers, signal patterns, deep space telemetry. Every transmission entering human space passed through this place. Most were ignored. Some were logged. Very few mattered. That night, Technician Armin Hale almost missed it. He was halfway through a long shift, leaning back in his chair, scanning routine traffic with half his attention. Nothing unusual. Nothing interesting. Just another quiet cycle. A flicker. A red indicator blinked once on the edge of his console. Armin frowned. Red meant priority. Red meant something was wrong. He leaned forward, tapping the alert. The system pulled up the incoming signal. Extremely weak. Buried under layers of background noise. Probably interference, he muttered. So, he adjusted the filters. Ran the signal again. The noise reduced slightly. Fragments of data began to appear. Unstable. Broken. But structured. Armin sat up straighter. That's not interference. He enhanced the signal further. The system struggled. Then reconstructed what it could. A few words appeared on the screen. Incomplete. Distorted. But readable. Emergency. Under attack. Armin's hand froze above the console. His mind tried to dismiss it. Glitch. Corrupted data. False signal. But the system didn't flag it as an error. It flagged it as real. He opened the origin trace. The answer appeared instantly. Outpost Kappa, 17. Armin stood up so fast his chair rolled backward. Supervisor, he called out. The quiet room shifted immediately. Heads turned. Conversations stopped. What is it? The supervisor asked, already walking toward him. Armin didn't look away from the screen. You need to see this. The supervisor leaned over his shoulder. Play it. Armin activated the audio reconstruction. Static filled the air. Harsh. Broken. A voice cut through it. Fragmented. Desperate. Multiple vessels, weapons, requesting. The signal distorted. Collapsed. Then one final piece came through clearly. 2 words. Cold. Final. They're firing. Silence filled the room. No one moved. No one spoke. The supervisor straightened slowly. Confirm origin. Already did, Armin said. Kappa, 17. The supervisor's expression changed. Not panic. Not shock. Something colder. More controlled. Lock the signal, he said. Full analysis. Now. The room came alive. Consoles lit up. Operators moved quickly between stations. The quiet facility transformed in seconds. Data streams shifted from blue to red. Priority channels opened. Security protocols activated. Armin watched as the system reprocessed the signal again and again, extracting every fragment it could. Coordinates. Attack pattern. Unknown signatures. No identification. No warning. No negotiation. Just force. Within minutes. The room was no longer quiet. Doors opened at the far end. Senior officers entered. Then more. Uniforms Armin had only seen on broadcasts. People who didn't respond to problems. They responded to threats. One of them stepped forward. Status. The supervisor answered immediately. Distress signal confirmed. Human outpost under active attack. Unknown hostile fleet. No identification. The officer nodded once. Survival probability? The AI responded before anyone else could. Low. The word hung in the air. Heavy. Unavoidable. Armin felt his chest tighten. Do we have contact? Another officer asked. No, the supervisor replied. Signal is one way. No response from the outpost since initial transmission. Another silence followed. Notify command. The order moved instantly through the system. Encrypted channels opened. Secure lines activated. Somewhere deeper in the facility, something else woke up. Armin looked back at the screen. At the broken message repeating over and over. They're firing. For the first time, humanity wasn't alone. And the first message they received was a distress call. The room didn't slow down. It became quieter. More focused. More controlled. Orders moved quickly, but no one raised their voice. No one panicked. Every action felt practiced, like something they had prepared for, but never expected to use. Armin stepped back from his console as more officers filled the command floor. Generals. Admirals. Intelligence directors. People who did not respond to accidents. People who responded to war. The main screen shifted. The last known transmission from Kappa, 17 appeared in full. Broken. Fragmented. But unmistakable. They're firing. No one spoke for several seconds. Then a senior officer asked the question that mattered most. Was the signal automatic? The supervisor nodded. Yes. Triggered during first strike. The officer absorbed that. No warning. No negotiation. No escalation. Just an attack. Another officer stepped forward. Do we have identification on the hostile force? The system processed the unknown signatures again. Scanning. Comparing. Failing. No match, the AI responded. Unidentified extraterrestrial fleet. The words settled into the room like weight. First contact. But not the kind anyone had hoped for. Armin felt it then. Not fear. Something deeper. Something colder. Reality. Another officer spoke, quieter this time. What protocol applies? The question changed everything. The room became still. Not confused. Not uncertain. Just silent. Because everyone there already knew the answer. A general stepped forward. His voice was calm. Steady. Protocol eclipse. Armin had never heard those words before. But the reaction around him told him everything he needed to know. No one questioned it. No one hesitated. They simply moved. Confirm authorization, another officer said. Authorization required at executive level, the AI responded. As if on cue. The main doors opened. The room stood instantly. No announcement. No delay. The highest authority in the room had arrived. He walked in without urgency. Without hesitation. And without emotion. Sit, he said simply. Everyone obeyed. He stepped toward the main display. Looked at the broken message. Watched it loop. They're firing. He didn't ask what it meant. He already understood. How long since signal received? He asked. For minutes, the supervisor replied. He nodded once. Then asked the question that mattered. Survival probability. The AI answered. 3%. Silence. Not shock. Not disbelief. Just acceptance. Another question followed. Distance to target. 39 light years. He looked at the screen for a long moment. What protocol applies? The general answered again. Protocol eclipse. The pause. Measured. Activate it. The words were quiet, but they hit harder than any alarm. Across the room, systems began to change. New screens appeared. Locked networks unlocked. Encrypted channels opened. Armin turned back to his console. New data flooded in. Systems he had never seen before. Files marked beyond clearance. Restricted. Hidden. Waiting. What is Eclipse? He whispered. No one answered him. Because no one needed to. The screens began to display something new. Not fleet movements. Not defensive formations. Not evacuation routes. Something else. A single word appeared on the main display. Oblivion. Armin stared at it. What is that? Still no answer. Because the explanation didn't come in words. It came in data. Archived records. Project files. Decades old. The screen shifted. A recording began. A scientist stood in a dim room, speaking to an unseen audience. We cannot win a prolonged war against an unknown interstellar civilization. The room around Armin remained silent. The recording continued. They may be older, faster, more advanced. If they strike first, we may not survive long enough to understand them. A new voice entered. What is the solution? The scientist didn't hesitate. We don't fight long wars. The screen flickered. More data. More files. Project designation. Eclipse initiative. Active. End conflict before escalation. Armin felt a chill run through him. The explanation continued. Not as a speech, but as fragments. Ideas. Conclusions. Fleets can be destroyed. Planets can be defended. Civilizations can rebuild. But one thing ends everything. The screen displayed a star. Bright. Burning. Alive. A simulation. The star dimmed. Collapsed. Expanded violently outward. The system around it vanished. Gone. Armin stepped back slightly. No. The realization hit. Not ships. Not weapons. Not battles. Something else. Something final. The recording ended with one line. If we are attacked, the war must end immediately. The main display returned. Oblivion remained at the center. The authority figure looked at it, then asked one final question. System readiness. The AI responded instantly. Dormant assets online. Awaiting command. Deployment time? Immediate. Another pause. Controlled. Target. The system pulled data from the distress signal. Unknown fleet origin. Trajectory. Vector analysis. A single point appeared. Their home. Their system. Their star. Armin felt his chest tighten. They're not sending a fleet, he whispered. No one corrected him. Because he was right. They weren't. The final confirmation appeared on screen. Eclipse deployment ready. The AI asked. Confirm response level. The room waited. The authority figure looked once more at the broken message. They're firing. Then he answered. Full response. The system processed the command. And far away, in the darkness between stars, something woke up. Far beyond human space. Drifting silently between stars, something activated. For decades it had done nothing. No signals. No movement. No purpose beyond waiting. But it had one. A small, black object shifted in the darkness. No lights. No markings. No visible weapons. Just a shape against the void. It powered on without a sound. Systems came online one by one. Target locked. Trajectory calculated. Command confirmed. To move. Not with engines. Not with fire. With something else. Space around it bent. And it vanished. Back at Kappa 17. The fleet still waited. Silent. Patient. Confident. They had already won. The station drifted in pieces now. Fires burned across its surface. Sections had gone dark. Life signs were almost gone. Inside the control room, Elias stood without speaking. Lyra sat beside him, her hands resting uselessly on a broken console. There was nothing left to do. The message still glowed on the screen. Surrender immediately. Elias looked at it one last time. They don't need an answer, he said quietly. Lyra didn't respond. Because there was no answer left to give. Outside, the fleet began to shift. Slowly. Repositioning. Preparing to finish it. Elias watched the movement. Then something changed. A new reading appeared on the edge of the sensor display. Almost invisible. Lyra frowned. What is that? Elias leaned closer. Unknown contact. Another ship? He shook his head slowly. Too small. The object drifted into clearer range. But featureless. Silent. It passed near the outer edge of the fleet. No reaction. No targeting. No interception. One of the alien ships scanned it briefly, then ignored it. Lyra blinked. They're not even reacting. Elias stared at it. Neither were they. Because it didn't act like a weapon. Didn't act like a ship. It didn't act like anything. It simply moved. Straight through. It disappeared again. Gone. Lyra looked back at Elias. What was that? He didn't answer. Because somewhere deep inside, something told him that wasn't random. Light years away, the black object reappeared. Inside a system. A living system. A bright star burned at its center. Planets moved in stable orbits. Stations floated in silent patterns. Civilization thrived. Unaware. Unprepared. The object slowed. Positioned itself. Then stopped. No alarm sounded. No defenses activated. Nothing detected it. Because nothing like it had ever existed before. Panels unfolded across its surface. Not weapons. Not shields. Something else. Something precise. Something final. It sent a signal. Not to ships. Not to stations. To the star. First, nothing happened. The system continued as normal. Life went on. But the change began. Almost invisible. Energy fluctuations. Minor instability. Scientists noticed first. Then systems. Then everyone. The star began to shift. Too fast. Too sudden. Impossible. Data poured in. Magnetic fields rising. Core pressure increasing. Thermal imbalance accelerating. What is happening? Voices echoed across their world. No one had an answer. Because there was no natural explanation. This wasn't time. This wasn't decay. This was force. The star wasn't dying. It was being pushed toward collapse. Panic spread. Ships launched. Signals flooded networks. Emergency protocols activated. But nothing could stop it. Because there was nothing to fight. No fleet. No enemy. No target. Only a star. Changing. Faster. Brighter. More unstable. Every screen across their civilization lit up. One message. Perfect. Undeniable. This is humanity's response. Silence followed. Then fear. Real fear. Because now, they understood. Back near Kappa 17, the fleet received the same message. The admiral read it once. Then again. His voice dropped. Open channel to home system. Static answered him. Then chaos. Voices shouting. Systems failing. Panic spreading. Our star, a voice cried. It's changing, we can't. The signal broke. The bridge fell silent. The admiral stared at the message again. His confidence was gone. His certainty, gone. What have they done? He whispered. No one answered. Because everyone already knew. In their home system, the star reached critical instability. Light intensified. Solar storms erupted across space. Planets burned. Atmospheres ignited. Oceans evaporated. Civilization collapsed in minutes. There was no escape. No defense. No survival. Because you can run from an enemy. You can fight a fleet. But you cannot escape your sun. The final transmission spread across every remaining channel. War requires survival. You removed yours. The star collapsed. For a fraction of a second, everything went dark. It exploded. A wave of energy consumed everything in the system. Planets. Stations. Chips. All of it. Gone. Back at Kappa 17, the fleet was silent. No movement. No commands. No victory. Only realization. The war had ended. Before it had even begun. Elias stared at the fading message on the screen. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just watched. Lyra whispered, barely audible. Is it over? Elias looked out at the stars. Cold. Endless. Unchanged. Then he answered. Yes. A long silence followed. Then he added. They made sure of it. Far across the galaxy, the explosion did not go unnoticed. Sensors detected it. Observatories recorded it. Civilizations studied it. And slowly, the truth spread. A species had attacked humanity. And in return, they had vanished. Not defeated. Not conquered. Erased. No fleets. No wars. No second chances. Just an ending. Final. Permanent. And with that, a message spread across the stars. Not spoken. Not written. Understood. Humanity does not fight wars. Humanity ends them.